Today, we're going to talk about asking the Father. It's the second half of the Lord's Prayer. We've been building our rule of life on the foundation of prayer and Bible engagement, looking at prayer as the avenue by which we discover who we are. We enter into relationship and we experience God using us for his purposes. Prayer is huge. It's literally my lifeline to knowing who God is, enjoying his presence, and having a sense of purpose. We looked at the first part of the Lord's Prayer a few weeks ago and said it's the orientation for prayer. It's before Jesus teaches his disciples to ask, right in the middle of the prayer, give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our debts as we forgive those who trespass against us. Do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one, right? So that latter half of the prayer is about us, and it's about us asking. But the first part of the prayer really is about orientation. It's about God. It's not about us. It's about him. So often we get our prayers turned around. We jump into prayer and immediately start asking God. So if this relationship is to be built well, we follow the model that Jesus gave us, which is to enter into the relationship, first of all, with this recognition that we ask our Father. Father. And I recommended that we see that as the Father's affection for us, the Father's affection. Jesus, different than any other rabbi ever in Jewish history up to the point when he came along, was starkly different for many, many reasons. But one of those reasons was because Jesus spoke to God as his Father. Previous rabbis throughout Jewish tradition and the Old Testament referred to God with honor and respect and reverence, but not as Father. Jesus opens the door to this relationship where he helps us understand that the Father has affection for us. So as you are praying this week, I want to encourage you to continue to open your time of prayer with being reminded of the Father's affection. We talked about that word heaven as meaning kind of the atmosphere, the sky. He literally, it's not a far off thing. It's literally, he's as close as the air we breathe. So it's God's availability. If we enter into prayer thinking about God's availability, about his affection, the hallowed sense of his name is that he's altogether separate and unique. He is completely sufficient for my emotional well-being. If I don't see God as sufficient for my emotional well-being, guess what? I'll look to something else. But if I believe God is sufficient for my emotional well-being, I will seek him. That first part of the prayer is really about us entering on a daily basis, even absolutely, ideally, moment by moment, maintaining my relationship with God. It's out of the relationship that I ask for my daily bread. So as we think about that, I want to encourage you, be focusing on this beautiful aspect of your relationship with God. P.R.A.Y, we read a book of his a couple years ago, and one of the beautiful things we got from that was a very simple pattern for prayer, a very simple acrostic for prayer that matches the Lord's Prayer. And it's appropriate that we bring it in this place in our series, P.R.A.Y. So what we've talked about with silence and solitude really is about this first entrance into prayer as a pause to center ourselves in God's presence, to focus my attention on him, more on him, less on me, more on his provision, less on my need, more on my dependence, less on my independence. So it's that pausing to kind of center myself to God. Pause, P-R, rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord. The scriptures constantly affirm this posture of rejoicing. One of my favorite is Thessalonians, where it says, Rejoice always. That's kind of a big deal. The second phrase, pray continually. That's daunting. The last phrase, give thanks to the Lord in all things. Rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all things. The praying is surrounded by rejoicing. And so when I think about rejoice, I'm coming to God, first of all, with a posture that says, you're sufficient, and I'm thankful for all that I've received, all that I will receive, and now let me ask for the things that I currently need. That rejoicing is just huge. So P.R.A.Y. Pause, rejoice, ask, and yield. Throughout our week, we're going to talk about how to ask, why ask, how to ask. And so as we dig into that, I just want to invite you to pause with me and simply first say, Lord, we are delighted to be your children, to be the recipients of your affection. You are altogether sufficient for my emotional well-being. I trust you with all that I have, with all that I am, with all that I want to do. I love you, Lord. I rejoice in being your child. I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we think about our asking, our petition, what we bring to this relationship when we have needs. I'll see you tomorrow.